Welcome to part 2 of the history of the Marin County Fire Department. I'm retired Fire Chief Paul Smith with the Marin Fire History Group. Last month, we introduced you to retired Chiefs Stan Rowan, Jim Selfridge, and Ken Mazzucco. They discussed the improvements and transitions of their fire apparatus over the years. Lastly, the Chiefs considered the challenges of vegetation management with regard to today's wildland urban interface conditions.
And I'm retired Fire Dispatcher Jim Mann from Marin County Fire Department. Today, Marin Fire History is pleased to continue our discussion with those chiefs as they narrate their experiences during the 1995 Vision Fire. We're also going to discuss the advent of the Paramedic Program with the Marin County Fire Department. Thank you for your interest in Marin Fire History, and we'll conclude our series on the Marin County Fire Department next month.
Due to the pandemic, this video was recorded via the internet, using multiple computers to allow for social distancing. You may notice occasional glitches in the transmission quality because of this. Thank you for joining us and enjoy this great history.
I think probably a good topic would be to talk about the 1995 Vision Fire as the last, what I call major fire in Marin, several years, but maybe to Stan and Jim, since you both were very instrumental in that fire, and you can talk a little bit about that. I think for me it's kind of ironic because they kept calling me to come back to work. I was on my days off and I was babysitting. My wife was out. I was babysitting Nick, who now works for Marin County Fire. And I was thinking, when he was out on the fire out in Point Reyes this year, that was 25 years ago that happened. That he almost cost me a fire because I was babysitting him. But they finally said, just bring Nick down to the fire department. We'll take care of him. You go to the fire. But maybe you can talk a little bit about that fire, Stan and Jim.
That particular the first week of October, and there have been Cal Fire had cut the air tankers, and I believe for the area, and then did order air tankers that we got in. They found out that the wind was so bad they were missing the targets, and I think we almost had the original fire. Maybe we did have it surrounded, but it had already.
And it torched a pine tree and spotted across the canyon.
Across the canyon. Yeah. And that was, it was, and then that was the mutual aid system that we had never used like that before. And we got, I forget how many, there was a lot of mistakes made in other jurisdictions on how to get there, everything.
Oh, yeah.
But I forget how many strike teams we got from out of county.
100 engines from out of county.
I think, if I remember, that was, it was now late in the afternoon, and the next morning we had didn't you have 1,000 for breakfast or something?
Something like that.
The next morning, that's fast. And, but it was could have been worse. The wind stopped. I made a mistake and took a trip with Jim, and we went down to Laboratory. And coming back, he says, we were going right through the burn. Right. You could smell something. And he turned and says, I don't know. He says, there's a dog leg in this road, and I forget if it's left or right. And I'm going, I don't remember where the road was. And we got back. I was happy.
Yeah, I remember being up there with Ken, and we had 6 engines and 20 plus guys. And the water tank was right there. We were at the very top of Elizabeth, Paradise Ranch Estates, and the water tank was redwood. and it burned. And so these guys were trying to save houses up there, and the water went away. And I had told them, we really need to get out of here. And he talked me into staying, and they saved four or five houses. But I said, keep your radio next to your ear. When I say go, we go. Well, I was a day late and $1 short because the fire spotted them below us, and we were cut off, and they were out of water. And I knew the water tenders would never be able to find us, and I needed to get down and talk to Stan to tell him really how bad it was, because you couldn't use the radios, the cell phones, because that was the O.J. Simpson verdict day. I needed to face with Stan. I needed to talk to him. And I got the 2 water tenders to get out of there, because there was fire on both sides of the road on Drake Street Drive. It was orange, black. And I just crept along. I couldn't see past the hood of the truck. Orange, black. And I popped out into the sunlight and went down and talked to Stan. And it's the funniest part of the story. I get the 2 water tenders and I say, you guys stay right on my bumper. I'm going to turn my light bar on, focus on it, because you're not going to be able to see where you're going, especially as high up as they are. And Giacomini, the supervisor, Gary Giacomini's there BSing with Stan. And he says, maybe Gary'd like to take a ride with you. And I said, okay. No problem. Hop in. And I look at him. We're heading up Drake Street Drive, and I'm all no-mexed up and ready to rock. I've been rocking and rolling for hours, but he's wearing a tweed coat, blue jeans, and he's got a can of root beer in his hand. And we get to that spot where I have to see orange, black. And I lead the water tenders into where Ken and his guys are to get them their water, and there's propane tanks venting like 747 engines. And Giacomini is so scared, he squeezed that can completely closed around his fist, and he had root beer all over him. And it's time to leave. I said, I told Maz, I said, I've got to get Gary out of here. He's freaking out. And so I started back out, orange, black, and I'm creeping, and all of a sudden, boom, I hit something. And he looks at me, and I looked at him, and I'm going inside. I didn't say to myself, oh.
Yeah.
And Gary, he says, are we going to die? And I said, no, not your day to die or mine either. And so I backed up and took my best guess that I had hit a stump. That it was the same dog leg that
You talked about earlier.
with him. Got back and finally popped out into the sunlight, and got Gary off the hill, and we became his heroes. Giacomini and the board's heroes after that. He never stopped talking about how amazing Marin County Fire Department was for what they were, how they were putting their lives literally on the line that day, and what they accomplished by stopping that fire.
It was probably our fault that we, in the previous years, that we never really tried to show them what we were doing. That was, we should have, looking back on it, it was a federal fire, was on federal property, private property, and was county jurisdiction, federal jurisdiction, and Cal Fire was, we turned the fire over to Cal Fire at 10 o'clock first night. At Point Bay Station, we said we turned the fire over to the management team, and I gotta tell you something. I just lost my train of thought. The Cal Fire people come to me and said, "Wow, how do you guys get along so well with? Why is Public Works doing all these roadblocks and all that? This is wonderful." And they did. And then the fire was over. We turned the Casio Corporate into the place. And it was all run by they, directed traffic in and out. It was wonderful to see the relationship. That was a county department helping us and helping the taxpayers. And I'll never forget that. And then some of the CDF, the instant commander said, I've never seen this. You go to another county, there's a big friction. He said, this is amazing. And it helped us do that.
When you look at successful partnerships, I know Fahad Mansourian, the director of public works at the time, maybe he was the assistant, and Mike Sajati was the director, but Fahad went out there with several of the road crew and did roadblocks, escorted mutual aid equipment into where they needed to be, and it was very, very helpful during that fire. But I think it's important to note that when you really take an after action on that fire, when you look at the equipment or lack of equipment, and I'm talking about, I mean, I was in a pickup, the Woodacre utility pickup with no high band radio, just a portable HT, no cell phone, and Woodacre was the only station that had an extra pickup, and after that fire, we took a really long look at, hey, if we're going to have a major fire in Marin, really, what additional equipment do we really need? And we started adding utility vehicles to all of our stations, improving our radio caches, and doing a lot of things to better prepare us for a major fire. Another big piece, Stan, was our move into paramedicine and the establishment of the Paramedic Program, and maybe you can talk about how that got started. And I mean, I know we were in a joint training program with Novato, and Stanford University actually came up here to teach the class, the first class.
If I remember right, we had some federal money to help start that program. I forget how much it was, but and we started, with the first practice in Marin, and Jim was really involved in this, was we hired from within. I mean, we trained from within. Now that put a real, it hampered what else could be going on at the time, because we had 9 medics in training that we couldn't use on Parliament and stuff. So but I think we did a pretty good job with those first 9 medics.
They were Stanford trained.
Yeah.
Stanford came,
Ross Hospital.
Ross Hospital. They were going to experiment with off-campus training so that people didn't have to commute all the way to Palo Alto. And they set it up. We had a couple of Marin doctors who were very influential in the process, and we set up the didactic training at Ross Hospital.
Remember that county fire, because you had EMTs on the engines at the time, or no?
Yes.
And then you went to paramedics. And then I think that was a boon from my perspective back in the day, was particularly if you're out in West Marin, one of those nasty auto accidents. I mean, it's a long haul back into Central Marin for care, particularly if you didn't have paramedics.
Yeah, I mean, their very first save was had we not had medics, was from a motorcycle accident where the handlebar went through the guy's thigh and severed his femoral artery. And because of fluids and what they call a mast suit, they saved that man's life. That was their first save. Second save was a heart attack here in Woodacre, cardiac arrest.
But before that all happened, we were losing our patients about San Anselmo, about the hub. If they were brought in Point Reyes, you couldn't keep them alive that long. And that was the other thing that really, we were losing people. Even one of the old chiefs from here, Mr. Gardner, he waved goodbye to us as they pulled to the lift across the street on the back there, and he died at the hub. and he waved goodbye to us in the ambulance as they went. We did have a little bit of ambulance service. That was interesting in itself.
Yeah, I mean, the
A long
establishment,
ways.
the establishment of the Paramedic Program, came with certainly some growing pains. And to be very honest, one of them was, we hired a lot of our paramedics from private ambulance companies with no fire experience. And that was a kind of difficult for a lot of our people to accept, that we were hiring people with no fire experience. But, to be very honest with you, if you'd asked me, I think, the Paramedic Program is kind of the savior of the fire service, because without that line of business, and keep in mind that back in the old days, we were a single mission department. I can remember hearing stories that somebody would drive into the Woodacre Fire Station and say, "Hey, there's an accident down on Sir Francis Drake," and the firefighters would say, "Well, we'll call an ambulance." They didn't respond, and to see what we're doing today as far as what the mission is of the fire department, with water rescue, USAR, hazmat, I think today some of our medics are doing vaccines for the flu. So, it's grown tremendously, and I think it's a good thing. It's we're here to serve our public, and I think we're doing a very, very good job at it.